actually know how to start a video anymore. It's been that long. So I'm just going to start with, this hat is not a stylistic choice at all. It's out of pure necessity to cover up my weird looking hair. So with that, enjoy the review. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this year's first Halloween review, as well as this year's first review. I'm terrible at uploading, and I'm sorry for that. Anyway, today we're talking about Man Bites Dog, a Belgian psychological horror comedy mockumentary student film directed by Remy Belvaux, André Bonzel, and Benoit Poelvoorde. I am so sorry if I pronounced any of those names wrong. The film stars one of the directors, Benoit Poelvoorde, as Benoit, a sadistic serial killer with no real motivation as to why he does anything that he does. He just kills. The film also stars two of the directors, Remy Belvaux and André Bonzel, as Remy and André, two members of a fictional documentary crew of four, following around Benoit as he commits these horrible crimes. But as they continue to follow him and record all of these murders that he's committing, the line between being an objective observer and being a participant starts to blur. What fascinates me so much about Man Bites Dog is how it portrays its moral dilemma. Is it really possible to be an objective observer when the situation is so severe? Or can you only be a victim or a perpetrator? The film portrays this by starting out from the beginning, showing this serial killer, Benoit, murder people for no reason. There's no clear motive as to why he's doing any of this. He just does it. And from then on, as the film progresses, you start to meet these people, these documentary crew members who are filming him. And when you meet them, you start to think, these people are filming this man murder people and doing nothing. And from then on, it starts to become pretty clear that these are not good people. And it's because of that I think Man Bites Dog is such a fascinating movie. The way it uses its characters to illustrate such an insightful moral dilemma. Another theme I really like in this movie is how media affects our perception of violence. The movie shows Benoit do all these horrible, horrible things, but very rarely are there actually times where they portray him as this horrible, evil person. Oftentimes you watch him and you find yourself sympathizing with him almost. There are times where he will show the documentary crew his family, show them his friends. He'll take them to social gatherings. Sometimes the camera will even just face him, it will focus on him, and Benoit will talk about things like what it means to own a house, or he'll quote poetry. And so the audience sees him as this very, very intelligent, charismatic, funny, charming man who just happens to also occasionally do these horrible, evil things. And so I really like that idea, how the media perception, the documentary crew's perception of Benoit affects the audience perception. How at the same time as both the documentary crew, aka the media, as well as the audience, at the same time Benoit wins both of them over through his charm, his personality. Man Bites Dog very clearly understands what it means to make a serial killer attractive to the audience. And I don't mean in the way like, oh, he's very handsome, he's very good looking. I mean attractive in that you want to learn more about this person and you want to sympathize with this person as well. Nowadays, there are two ways movies like to do that. It's either by one, showing somebody who is so psychologically disturbed that you want to understand what they're going through out of morbid curiosity, such as in the new Apple TV show Blackbird, Prisoners, Zodiac, Memories of Murder. Or two, they cast someone who is so unbelievably attractive that you just want to look at this person. And I feel that doesn't work very well. You see it very often with Sebastian Stan in the movie Fresh. Evan Peters in the show Dahmer, and it all originates from Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. But in that case, Christian Bale being attractive isn't what makes him such an interesting character. It's that he's attractive, yet he still resorts to these horrible methods of torture and murder to satisfy his urges. Because Patrick Bateman is a character who can have anything he wants, and yet he still doesn't find pleasure in that. Therefore, he has to resort to other things to find other more repressed, inappropriate urges to find pleasure. And in the case of Man Bites Dog, Benoit is not a particularly attractive man. I don't want to put him down. That feels mean. But he's no Christian Bale, and we never see for a second what he's thinking. The closest we get is either him discussing the process of murdering people, as in like how to save bullets while killing people, or how to how to ballast a dead body. Or we also see what he's thinking through how other people think he's thinking. Other people who know he's killing these people, they think that, oh, this must be what he's thinking. And so because we don't get either of those, the way we sympathize with Benoit so much is not only through a lot of character development, as in meeting the people who care deeply for him, but also because, once again, Benoit is such a charming, charismatic character that you have no choice but to sympathize with him as he slowly wins you over. We've already talked a lot about how Benoit Poelvoorde, once again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, we've already talked a lot about how his performance is really great as this charismatic serial killer who does a great job winning the audience over. But also, the two other main performances from the other two directors, Remy Belvaux and Andre Bonzel, are really good. They play, once again, these documentary crew members who follow around Benoit, and although sometimes you do see them do these equally horrible things, the way they portray these characters as, oh, I had to do this. This is something that I had to do. Or, oh, it was an accident. Or, I can't get involved because this is objective observation. The way they portray these characters seems so real that you actually do side with them along with Benoit. And the way their chemistry works associating with Benoit, you also do feel a lot of sympathy for them, especially whenever bad things happen to them because of Benoit. You still care very deeply for them. And I really like that. I think all the performances all around in this movie are very good at capturing a realistic portrayal of how people would act if they were in this very outlandish situation. While this is a very disturbing movie, what's interesting is that this movie is not very, graphic or gory. There are some movies, you just see a kill and it's just you know what I mean? But in this case, this is not a very, disturbing, horrific, graphic movie in that regard. What is so disturbing, graphic, and horrific about this movie is the implication. The kills might not be gory, except for one. There's one scene in this movie that I'm not going to talk about, but I skip it every time because it's just so unpleasant to watch. But while the kills might not be graphic with the exception of that one scene, what is disturbing about it is the implication. Not only are we watching innocent people be killed, which is, of course, always a very disturbing thing to see, but also you're watching this documentary crew who at the start of the movie seems very, very innocent. You're watching them slowly be morally corrupted through their complicity with... Is complicity a word? I'm going to use it. Through their complicity with Benoit's actions. You're seeing them become worse people solely through them watching these killings take place and sympathizing with Benoit and treating him like, oh, this is my friend. That's what's so disturbing about this movie. That there are these kills that happen that affect how these people see the world. And along with that, the other disturbing thing is kind of seeing just Benoit be a normal person. Because it's very disturbing, the idea that some normal person could be a serial killer and you'll never expect it. That is what makes Man Bites Dog so wildly disturbing. But with all this talk of how disturbing Man Bites Dog is, and don't get me wrong, it is the singular most disturbing movie I've ever seen in my life. That being said, this is still a very funny movie. Like, that sounds very weird to say after talking so long about how messed up it is. This is a very funny movie. There's one scene that where Benoit tries to kill this guy in a car crash, but then the guy escapes, and Benoit is chasing after him with a gun. They end up in an abandoned factory, and while they are looking for this man, Benoit loses this bracelet that's very dear to him, very important to him. And so this documentary crew starts shining their light around, trying to look for the bracelet with him. And while they're looking, they accidentally find the guy that they're looking for and basically sign his death warrant. It's scenes like that are so well executed. This movie has a great blend of actual dark humor, not like, the terrible Family Guy sort of dark humor you see nowadays, but real, actually funny dark humor, along with a very dark, disturbing implication. I feel like that blend in this movie works so well at creating such an entertaining movie. There's one scene in particular in this movie that, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but sort of the context is like Benoit and the documentary crew are in an abandoned building and someone starts to try to kill them. And when they find out who it is who's trying to kill them, that scene is not only just so funny, but also so masterfully crafted. One of my all-time favorite movie scenes that just so perfectly encapsulates how we should be viewing Benoit versus how we really are viewing Benoit. And I think that scene is just such a well-crafted scene for that reason. And with all this positive talk about Man Bites Dog, I do have one itty-bitty little complaint, and it's that every scene in this movie has two purposes. The first is to be funny. The second is to contribute to the overarching themes of media's influence on our perception of violence, as well as the morality of being an objective observer. Now, because of that, there are some scenes that lead up to a joke, and because they don't land, and because all the scenes in this movie don't actually contribute to a story, rather a theme, therefore they're more vignettes rather than scenes, because some of the jokes don't land, the entire scene feels very unnecessary and it slows the movie down a lot. And so, for example, remember that scene that I was telling you about that was so horrifically disturbing that I had to skip it? That's supposed to be a very funny scene that contributes to the theme. But that scene, I really would have a hard time believing anyone would find it funny. I definitely don't. And I don't think anyone else really finds it funny either. And so, because of that, scenes like that really bog down the pacing of the movie. It just feels very unnecessary. All that being said, I'm going to give Man Bites Dog an A. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I would not recommend it to anyone. The only person I have recommended this to was a girl who was looking for disturbing movies. That's it. And she'd already seen movies much worse than this, so this is a walk in the park for her. But this movie is definitely not for the faint of heart. It's not for everyone. It barely was for me, and I just still ended up liking it. So I actually would unrecommend this movie to you. Just take my word for it. Know that it's good. Know that you probably shouldn't watch it. Although, if you really have your heart set on seeing Man Bites Dog and you want to know if it's the type of thing you'd like, a few movies similar to it are Dan Gilroy's Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and Michael Haneke's Funny Games, both of which share the same theme as Man Bites Dog in showing how media affects our perception of violence, as well as the very obvious one, a movie that came 7 years after Man Bites Dog, Mary Harron's American Psycho. Both are very similar in terms of vibe and dark humor, although the difference is that American Psycho is about how rampant consumerism creates someone like Patrick Bateman, while Man Bites Dog is about how becoming an objective observer can enable someone like Benoit. Well, that's going to do it for the first Halloween review of this season. Before you leave, why don't you tell me who your favorite fictional serial killer is? Mine is mine's probably Li Wu Jin from Old Boy, which is the second most disturbing movie I've ever seen. If you don't have a favorite fictional serial killer and you're normal, why don't you tell me what the most disturbing movie you've ever seen was? Mine is Man Bites Dog. After you tell me about that, you can head on out. Stay safe and watch good movies. Bye!